It is Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. Hope everyone's doing well today. You know what I'm excited about today? Going out and growing businesses, and we have a number of articles to help you do that. First up, critical update from Pasha Ershad on how to maintain your email health. As the email rules change, it is so important that we remain in compliance with them, or we won't be able to use email effectively. And I think most of you out there are probably using email at some level. Then Nathan Thompson, who is head of content at Copy.ai, says AI is going to require a different approach to content. We have to create meaningful and authentic content in order to stand out. So that's a great topic. And then O Leary shares growth lessons from a pub in London. That's one of the hottest spots in the world today. And I think in this post, there's a number of great lessons for all of us in terms of growing your business. And then finally, we wrap up with an article from Jenni Romaniuk. Sorry, Jenni, if I mispronounced your name. Professor Jenni Romaniuk, who says, customer acquisition is the only way to grow. But I want to use this article to also introduce the concept of double jeopardy, which I'm going to talk about more in the future. So a number of great topics. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's take a look at this post from Pasha Ershad, who's co-founder of Shape and Scale. And this is about your technical setup for email and looking at whether your email is being valued by the people you're sending to. And pretty much every company I know is sending email, so this is super important. And so that's why I wanted to highlight this first. If you're using email, you need to make sure these things are addressed. So I appreciate that Pasha raised this and put this in such a clear post. He says, if you don't understand DKIM, SPF, or DMARC, email will get a lot harder. Well, HubSpot sent out the initial reminder earlier this year. Things are going to tighten up in June and July from Google Workspace. Beginning June 2024, which is right around the corner, bulk senders with a user-reported spam rate greater than 0.3% will be ineligible for mitigation. And so here, this is what you need to know. Email authentication gets stricter. These DKIM, SPF, and DMARC, these aren't just fancy acronyms. They're your new best friends in email marketing. They will become mandatory to combat spam and ensure your emails don't bounce back. Then you need to make sure you have a very simple one-click unsubscription. In addition, you should focus on wanted emails. Make sure that the people who are receiving your emails are things that they wanted. As he says, a high spam rate can lead to severe email deliverability issues. And why should you care? And this is a great summary. These changes aren't just about following rules. They're about enhancing email deliverability and building trust with your audience. It's about sending emails that your audience wants and values, not just what you want to send. He says, if you think I'll deal with it later, think again. So he has some recommendations. What can you do? Start by reviewing your email authentication methods and technical setup. Make sure your unsubscribe process is thought out. Proactively monitor your email engagement and spam rates. Run re-engagement campaigns to confirm opt-in. Use email verification. And monitor sequence scores if you're running outbound through HubSpot. And so what I would just do is take this post and share it with whoever's running your email. Or if you're running your own email, go into HubSpot or contact HubSpot and ask them, are we compliant? This is just so important. You will not have email as an effective channel if you don't comply with these new rules. And so I really appreciate that Pasha raised this because email remains such a critical tactic for many. All right, next, let's take a look at this article from Nathan Thompson. He starts off with this post. Here's the hard truth. As AI becomes smarter, those generic SEO for the sake of SEO tactics are becoming increasingly ineffective. Google can now directly answer many top-of-the-funnel queries, diminishing the need for users to click through to websites. This has major implications for content marketers. We're seeing declines in returns from investing in shallow SEO-focused content. And so what's the solution? It's time to pivot our focus to higher value thought leadership content that shows its true expertise and provides unique insights. And so we hear this a lot. And Nathan goes through and actually he wrote this article which highlights in detail more what he's thinking about. If you're a content marketer, hopefully this isn't news to you. The days of churning out generic keyword stuff blog posts to game search engines are coming to an end. And I think if you're in content, it's not news to anyone. But what does this mean? So he goes through and has a number of recommendations. And here are some examples of the kind of thought leadership content that really makes an impact. In-depth analysis of where your industry is headed and what it means for your audience, unique frameworks or methodologies your thought leaders have developed, hot takes that challenge the status quo and spark fresh discussions, case studies that showcase your brand's innovative approach to solving thorny problems, visionary pieces that paint an exciting or provocative picture of the future. The key is to focus on substance over stuff. The payoff, authentic thought leadership at scale. And I think this is the most important thing, is that we are trying to be authentic here. We're trying to provide value. And this ties into what I've been talking about lately, is also trust. If you went to a website with just generic content, that does not build trust. When you see that people are solving your problem, that they have meaningful insights, that is something that builds trust within the brand. You know what they're you realize they know what they're talking about. And so while SEO-driven content can drive traffic and has driven traffic in the past, that's going to become more challenging. But it's also important from a trust standpoint that you produce this type of content. And so this will build your brand. It'll show that you're an authority in the space, but it'll also build trust. All right, next up, I want to talk about this article from O Leary. And I just love this because it's not related to B2B, but I think there's some great lessons within this. So he starts off by saying, how does a new pub go from launch to being one of the biggest sellers of Guinness in the UK, with dinner slots selling out faster than Taylor Swift tickets? The Devonshire, a new pub and restaurant in London, is one of the hottest spots in the world at this moment. This is a great story of how owner and Irishman Austin Rogers, and apologies for mispronouncing the name if I did, has carefully crafted a world-class hospitality business in one of the best served cities in the world. And so he got these from a podcast with Dan Pope. And so here are some of the key insights that he raises. Austin's deep respect for his customer base, from the binman to the chairman. And I love this. It's really about valuing who you're interacting with, regardless of their role. And this is so true even in B2B. You know, there's an article that I shared not too long ago, which was like, if people aren't qualified, then basically you can ignore them. But that's just the wrong approach. You should not do that. I mean, yes, you don't need to do full court sales on them, but you need to make sure that you treat them with respect and deal with them in a way that makes them want to do business with you again. So providing knowledge, providing expertise, handling them like a potential future customer. And that's one of the things that this bar is doing, is treating everyone with deep respect. The idea of giving people stories that they can take away and share from the pub, seeding a breadcrumb trail of interesting things throughout that become little bits of word of mouth. And of course, this speaks to me because if you've listened to any of my videos, you know I love A, storytelling, and B, word of mouth. So it's interesting that he's being very intentional in being able to do this. And it's having, obviously, a significant impact on his growth. The importance of focusing on timeliness, not trends, and getting the big things right. So obviously he's creating a world-class brand with this pub, which is something that we should all aspire to. It's not just about, hey, can we bolt on AI to what we're doing now? No, it's about solving the need. It's about creating this exceptional experience. The deep research and insight he has done into what makes a pub great, including a sense of managed chaos and realizing that people actually don't want space. They want lots of nooks and snugs so they can't be seen. And so again, just focusing on what your brand is, what is the product that you're delivering, and thinking about what your people are, what your prospects are looking for, and delivering that. So it starts with that customer research. It starts with that product market fit. And so you need to make sure you address that. The insane levels of focus and detail it takes to build something brilliant. He refers to the sound levels in the pub, the type of Victorian wallpaper they've chosen, the old sign writer they got to create the look of 100-year-old exterior, and the knives they meticulously sourced. And so again, this ties into brand. Your brand isn't obviously just your logo and messaging, but it's all of your customer interactions. And so you need to make sure, as you look at your offering, which is your brand, that you're not failing in any area. So it's this level of detail, it's this focus on the entire customer experience to make sure it's exceptional. And that's what your brand is that entire, all the experiences, your customer experiences, your prospect experiences. And so that's how you create this brand, and it leads to word of mouth. It leads to this tremendous growth. So great lessons for all of us, even if we're in B2B SaaS. Okay, let's take a look at this article that was published on Marketing Week in 2021, but I think it's still very applicable today and perhaps even more applicable. Customer acquisition is the only viable growth strategy in B2B, says Ehrenberg-Bass's Romaniuk. And apologies, Professor, if I got your name wrong. I like to get them correct, but if I didn't, apologies. All right, the article starts off by saying, think you're going to grow your brand, your B2B brand, by focusing on customer loyalty. According to the Law of Double Jeopardy, which we'll discuss, you're wrong. And that has implications from everything from growth KPIs to marketing strategy. A major new study by the Ehrenberg-Bass Institute confirms the marketing law of double jeopardy applies to B2B brands just as much as B2C. And therefore, the only clear path towards growth for B2B brands is through customer acquisition. And so the law of double jeopardy says, it was first discovered in the 1960s, reveals that loyalty is largely a predictable function of market share, increasing as brands grow in size. So larger brands have higher loyalty. And Ehrenberg-Bass has gone through and looked at many different industries and found this relationship exists. It's not perfect, but is remarkably consistent. And so if you have a bigger brand, your customers are going to be more loyal. And so the point of this is that if you're saying, hey, we're going to increase retention, that can be challenging because of this relationship. And so the reason why it's called double jeopardy is because small brands are being punished twice. The larger brands have more customers, and those customers are more loyal. So smaller brands are up against this. The article goes on to say, while previous research has shown the law of double jeopardy does apply to B2B brands, Romaniuk's study further illustrates the phenomenon with new examples of the law taking effect across two markets, UK business banking and US business insurance. All right, let's scroll down here and see what it looks like in this table. So this is accident and health insurance for B2B customers. You can see Allstate has 15% of B2B customers, and their likely defection rate is 2.1. AIG has 7%, and it's higher, and this relationship holds up. The more customers you have, the lower your likely defection rate. And so, and like I said, this holds up across many different institutions. What double jeopardy simply says is we can't engineer loyalty, and focusing on loyalty isn't a route to sustainable growth, Romaniuk tells Marketing Week. It gives us a clear strategic path of how brands grow and what its power is. Peter Weinberg, one of the two global leads at LinkedIn's B2B Institute, says most B2B and B2C marketers believe there's two viable paths of growth, focusing on loyalty or focusing on acquisition. I think what Jenni's paper shows, it's pretty clearly there are not two viable paths. There's only one viable path, which is increasing customer acquisition. So if you want to grow, you have to acquire new customers because loyalty is a function of the size of your brand, which is kind of a surprising takeaway. I think a lot of people feel like they can engineer loyalty. So what are the practical applications of this? There are a number of ways in which B2B marketers and brands can take the lessons of the double jeopardy law and apply it practically to their growth strategies. Most importantly, they must identify and remove any barriers to acquisition, whether mental, what you are salient for offering, or physical, where, how, or what potential customers can buy for you. Marketers should also rethink the metrics they track and move their focus away from loyalty metrics, says the B2B Institute's other global lead, John Lombardo. All the evidence here says you need to grow your customer base. That's the number one thing you should be tracking. And so really, I wanted to introduce this. One, the idea that you really need to focus on new customer acquisition rather than loyalty. And that's because of the law of double jeopardy. But I also wanted to just raise the law of double jeopardy because it sounds really bad for small brands. You're like, oh, there's no hope because larger brands are retaining more customers. They have more customers. That's more word of mouth. That's a huge asset for them. But later this week, I'm going to share another more content that shows the law of double jeopardy can actually be the best thing for smaller brands. There's a huge opportunity for growth because of the law of double jeopardy, if you do it the right way. And so like I said, I'll be sharing some content that highlights the opportunity for growth as a result of this law, as long as you pursue the right growth strategy.